So I'm recording this on Tuesday, April 13th at about 9 o'clock at night. I'm going to post it on Wednesday morning sometime. So, I actually just got back from speaking at a Republican event in New Hampshire. It was just a local Republican meeting, and I kind of talked about my story and what I did with Walkaway, and I talked about the HB 544, the bill in New Hampshire, and I promoted a rally that we're doing in the New Hampshire State House on April 24th. If you're in the New Hampshire area, we will be having a rally at the State House in Concord on April 24th, and information is on Facebook and all that stuff. But one of the questions I was asked tonight was, why don't more people do what I did? Why don't more people leave the left? And the answer is really, really simple. It's a terrifying proposition. It really is. It's not easy. Even if you know you're being lied to, and by the way, people on the left, they might have some conception of how much they're being lied to. They don't know the full extent of it. I still don't know the full extent of it. So even if they have some conception that what the left is doing is not correct, that what big tech is doing with censoring people and deplatforming them is not correct, what the media is doing with obvious falsehoods, they might understand conceptually that something is off. They might be uncomfortable with what Black Lives Matter is doing, how the fact that, the leader of Black Lives Matter just bought a multi-million-dollar mansion. They might be uncomfortable with what's going on in Minnesota. All these things could be true. And they still might not leave the left. Because to leave the left means that your entire view of the world, everything you believe to be true, will come crashing down around you in an instant, in a moment. And you can never go back from that. And it's scary. It's kind of like, oh, I wish I had a rubber band. I kind of do. I have one of these little bracelets. Like when you stretch something, like say you stretch out a piece of clothing. When you stretch out a piece of clothing and it gets worn in, it never quite goes back to its original size, right? Because you've stretched it out through like rubber bands or like, a t-shirt or what have you. Same thing is true with ideology. Once you stretch outside your comfort zone and you allow new ideas in, you can never quite go back to the way things were before. I mean, this is why taking the red pill is such an amazing analogy for what this is. That is the perfect analogy for what this is, because you can't go back once you do that. Or I suppose you could. I suppose in theory, like that one dude that just wanted to like go eat a steak could go back into the Matrix. But in real life, we cannot insert ourselves back into the Matrix. In real life, we have to manage from where we are. Listen, if you listen to the little socialist idiots on Twitter, you might think that I just went to a Trump rally one day and people at the Trump rally were nice to me, and that's why I chose to left the left. Because Republicans were nice to you, Carolyn. That's why it happened. No, that's not why it happened, dude. That's not why it happened. I spent months. It was at least a 6-month process. It might have even been longer. I'm not sure exactly when it started, but it was several months of me considering different perspectives. When I first started this process of kind of waking up, one of the things I started doing was just watching YouTube videos. And I had never really watched YouTube. Like, YouTube was not my thing, man. It was my husband's thing. But he said, watch Ben Shapiro, Carlin, or watch Joe Rogan, or, and once you start watching them, I got introduced to like Dave Rubin, or I was watching Tim Pool, or, any of these things. And all of these things, it was a slow buildup over time where I would listen to views that I thought I would disagree with. Some of them I would disagree with and some of them I wouldn't. But over time and watching a lot more YouTube than a reasonable person should, and I say that as, I understand the irony of being on YouTube. But over the course of doing that and watching thousands of videos, probably, and having conversations with people outside of my echo chamber and opening my mind to new ideas, and ultimately, yes, going to that Trump rally, and yes, having Trump supporters be really nice to me as someone who was a Democrat, at the time and be really open and welcoming. That was just the final cherry on top, right? That was the final cherry. It wasn't the first thing that happened. It was the last thing that happened. It's like the last straw of me finally waking up. And I've told people that after that Trump rally, when I was sitting in my car trying to drive home, I had a splitting headache because the cognitive dissonance that I was experiencing in that moment was so incredibly bad. I can't even begin to explain it. And then once you get to that point of you start seeing how much you've been lied to, then you are faced with a prospect. Like it took months for me to get to that one specific point. And then once you get to that point, and other people it might take years. Like this was a mission for me. This was a project. Like for some people, it might not take them 6 months. It might take them 2 years to have the same experience. And there's no good or bad in that. Like everyone has their own journey. But once you get to that point of realizing how much the media has lied to you, that opens up a whole other set of worms. Because to leave the left means that most of the people that you know are going to abandon you instantly. Instantly. I lost all my friends. I lost my family. I have family members that don't speak to me. My own parents do not speak to me. And partially because of this and partially because there was other stuff going on. And I won't say it was all this, but this was the final straw, at least for my mother, right? And I don't say that to ask for sympathy because I'm fine with the situation. But the fact of the matter is that when you're on that other side and all you're getting from your friends, people that you've known for years, is negative feedback about even watching these videos. You guys like don't even know. I on occasion would post like one of Tim Pool's videos on my Facebook. Just the fact that I posted his video on my Facebook, he's not even on the right, dude. Like, my friends would lose their minds over this. Or, like, God forbid, I posted, an episode of Joe Rogan when there was a questionable person on it. Like, I would hear negative feedback, like, Carlin, why are you doing this? Why, are you becoming a Nazi now? What's going on? Like, all of my friends were backlashing against me. So, you are keenly aware that if you make this transition, if you leave the left, you are going to lose your friends. You're going to lose your family. You might lose your job. Like, I lost, when my article went viral, I lost clients immediately. I still have clients that come out of the woodwork today, like clients that I worked with years ago. I just had one like last week. Like this client that I worked with years ago, who just sent me an email last week, like, just to confirm, we will be working with someone else from now on. And I knew what it was from. And I wasn't, like, counting on them anyway, so it wasn't, like, that big of a deal. But I was like, you got off on sending me that email telling me that you weren't going to work with me anymore when I haven't heard from you in over a year anyway. So you lose a lot. And you're keenly aware going into it that you're going to lose a lot. Now, what you don't know when you're on the left is that when you leave and you start getting involved with the other side, you're going to make so many new friends and they're going to be so much better, honestly, because it's a more authentic relationship and you don't have to agree with everything that they say. But you don't know that when you're still on the left. All you think is, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose everything. And like, what do I have left? I'm a Republican after this, and it doesn't seem worth it. Like, and it's hard enough to get to that point, but that's why more people don't leave. That's why. It's terrifying. And I'll tell you what, and I said this to the Republicans tonight, and I'll say it to you guys, like right now, I do not know the way things are right now. If I was still on the left, I do not know if I would make that transition now, because right now, the Republicans, the right, they're just acting like controlled opposition. They're not acting like this big tent that is welcoming of people with different viewpoints and different ideas. They're just acting like controlled opposition, and it's really unappealing. And it's really quite aggravating if I'm frank about it, because they get focused on stupid nonsense things that have nothing, that have no relevance, that is not going to change anything, but they like go on and on and on and on and on about it. It's incredibly unappealing. And so right now, I actually don't know if I would have left the left with the way things are right now. I think the fact that Trump was in office and there was leadership and there was like optimism and people were feeling good, I think that was a very integral part of my journey, and that doesn't exist now. There's no one out there leading. There's no one out there trying to maintain this big tent. And that's really important, because if the Republican Party goes back to being the Republican Party that it was before Trump, you're not going to get any more people like me. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're not going to get any more like me. And in fact, I joined the Republican Party, and I did so because I think it's really important to solidify this in like a structural level. And the only way that happens is to actually join the dang thing. But if things don't start moving in that direction, like Trump is going to have to come out of the woodworks at some point. And I hope that when we get more into the 2022 races, and then when the presidential race starts happening, I hope things start to come back together again. But right now, the right is not doing them any favor. They're not doing themselves any favors. So that's why people don't leave. It's scary. It's terrifying. Every part of your worldview is going to come crashing down around you. And I'll tell you this, I still have not gone back and dissected like all the different ways that I was lied to in the course of this journey. I haven't done it, and I can't ever do it. I mean, there are things that I look back on that especially happened during Trump's presidency, but even before that, I look back and I'm like, do I understand what happened? Do I know the whole story? How much was I lied to? When did this start? Like, in what ways have I been lied to? I will never know the extent that I've been lied to. It is a terrifying prospect to believe that everything that you know is not the truth. You weren't presented with the truth. And there were times before YouTube when we didn't have as easy access to information as we have now, and thank God for it. But when you're asking people to leave the left, you're asking them to watch everything that they know is true turn out to be not true. That's a terrifying journey for everyone. So my best advice is for the right. Number one, you got to get your act together, man. You got to go back to this big tent. We are open and welcoming of different ideas, and just stay out of our business, and you can live your life and we can live ours. You got to get back to that in some way, shape, or form. This neocon, like, emerging Christian conservative nonsense thing that's going on, it's not going to benefit you, and it's not going to appeal to people like me. I'll tell you that right now. If there's another moral majority where Christians take over the Republican Party, and I'm not, like, most Christians I have no issue with. I'm talking about the really hardcore ones that want to legislate their religion and force it on everyone else and try to convert everyone else and tell you you're going to hell if you're not doing the things that they want you to do. I'm talking about those types of Christians, and you know exactly who I'm talking about, and don't pretend you don't in the comments. If that's what happens to the Republican Party, I'm out, man. No. If you start treating LGBT people like second-class citizens, and many of you already are, and if you're not doing it, this isn't directed at you, but some of you absolutely are, I'm out. No. If you want people to leave the left, you have to make it appealing. And you're going to say, well, we're not going to pander to them. Well, you elected Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a Democrat for most of his life. You don't need to pander to anyone. You need to continue on the course that you were already on. You were already doing these things. But the right is their own worst enemy. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to do what I can, man, but I don't have like influence. Like, I mean, I guess I have some. I have more than like the average bear, but I don't have a lot. Like, let's just be real here. Like, I can't control any of this. The rest I can do is run my mouth on the internet and hope some people listen. But that's where we're at. If you want more people to leave the left, you have to make it an open and welcoming experience, because it's already scary enough, and they're already sacrificing more than you probably understand. And a lot of them are going to lose everyone that they care about in their lives, or at least a lot of them. And it's not an easy thing to go through. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I'm on the other side. I'm so glad everything worked out the way it did. It for me worked out exactly like it should have. But going through it, I mean, like, that was hard. That was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. And I had no idea what I was even doing when it was all happening. So that's why. That's why it's so hard. It's not a quick flick of the switch. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot that you sacrifice in the process. There's a lot you gain in the process too, but you don't realize that when you're going through it. You only realize that after it's already happened. So be gentle on people on the left. Be gentle with them, because if you call them names, if you call them libtard, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, or use liberal as a pejorative, like that still pisses me off. Or, you know, make fun of them for watching what they watch or believing what they believe, then don't expect them to come and want to play on your team, man. You all have to contribute in this too. And, you know, I wish Walkaway hadn't gotten banned on Facebook. They're on Cloud Hub, but that was the one place I had. That, like, the Walkaway community, thank God I had access to that. And it was a vibrant, robust community at the time, because I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had that. That was the one place where I felt sane. So maybe, I mean, I hope that Walkaway is able to rebuild over on Cloud Hub. If you haven't joined their group yet, definitely go and do that. But I really hope that they're able to rebuild somewhere else as well, because I just don't think Cloud Hub makes sense. That's my opinion. That's my very independent, not Walkaway opinion. So I don't think it's going to attract like actual lefties on that platform. But hey, I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. But there has to be some shared community, and you have to welcome them in, because I don't know where I would go now if I was in the same position now that I was 2 years ago. So those are just my thoughts on the matter. I hope that provides some insight. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.